Well, hello and welcome to the Three Muscateers, another edition. On my left we have Peter Scudamore-Smith, cultivator of all things cultural at Uncorked and Cultivated. And on my right we have Ken Gargetts, the scribe to the stars. Today we're doing a few iterations of Pinot Grigio, depending on where they come from and what style they are. And I'll get Ken to take it away because they're his babies.
The reason for these three is I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting than just your average cheapo. Nothing wrong with the Pinot Gris and Pinot Grigios, often fairly neutral, bit of pear character, but some of the winemakers are doing stuff that is far more interesting, and I think these are three examples. Two from Australia, one from the Dolomites in Italy. And presumably we can see the colouring, same grape. And yet that's the colour you get. And Gris is French for grey. So, I mean, that's not grey obviously, but it certainly picks up some colour. 9 months in amphora, from Spain apparently. I'm not sure whether Spanish amphora are better or different. Biodynamic farming. They recommend decanting first. Unfortunately, we haven't had the time to do that, so it's come straight from the bottle. But it's an extraordinary colour for a white wine. This has, I think, an amazing aroma.
If it weren't so vibrant, you'd almost think Premox, wouldn't you? With that colour, if it weren't vibrant.
Oh, you'd think it was shot.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing. Cork obviously does play its role. The last one that we opened of this was even more exuberant on the nose, but less so on the palate. This one's a bit more balanced, I guess you'd say.
A couple of things about it. In amphora, that means skin contact for a long period of time, probably weeks or months. 9 months. That's a long time to be in contact with the skin, given that the first two wines would have been in contact with the skin a few hours. So
that's where the colour comes from.
3 or 4 hours versus 9 months. So the wine is basically a light dry red in some respects, but that's what the brown skin or the purple skin of the Pinot Grigio grape is picked up with such long contact. The other thing about this wine is that all this variety from Italy are called Pinot Grigio. The Gris is French, so you will never see a Pinot Gris from Italy. So the style will vary depending on the producer and the region. So you can have cheap and cheerful out of the Veneto, or you can have deep and meaningful out of the Dolomites.
And look, if people are interested in the biodynamics and that style of thing, it's worth getting onto the website of these guys, Foradori. They're doing some fantastic stuff with this and other varieties. They're very much into their local varieties. They did dabble with the international varieties years ago, but that's all gone now, and they're focused very much, both red and white, on the best local varieties they have, and it's quite fascinating stuff.
I just noticed on the label too, it's only 12% alcohol. Not often you get something that doesn't have a bit of residual sugar left in it with 12% alcohol, and that's probably because it's at the foot of the Dolomite Mountains. Well,
very high elevation, probably 1,000 metres above sea level. Very cold climate, very slow ripening, and I guess autumn closes in before the grapes are ripe. So this is a very delicious, quite tannic. It's almost a red wine in some regards, but it's very rich and it's an enlightening wine to try. I recommend somewhere along the line try and have a Pinot Gris or Grigio, regardless. It could be Italian, could be local.
And what about dollars?
I think that's around about 40.
Yeah, wow, that's really good value for that sort of wine, isn't it?
I haven't been to the vineyard, but I'm very keen to go because it looks a fascinating exercise, and it's also, from the photos, one of the most spectacular vineyards you'll ever see, with the sheer cliffs coming right down. It's spectacular stuff.
Excellent. All right, well, on to number two. So number one's a winner. Number two is the Oak Ridge Pinot Grigio from...
Oak Ridge.
From Oak Ridge. And there's a little bit of wood contact in that, probably a little bit more than I think I read on the label.
2020, I think.
Yeah, 2020 was a good vintage.
Probably not as good as 21, but not bad.
Not bad. A fair bit of rain before the season started. Lots of concerns, but this is a really resilient grape, Pinot Gris. It has a thick brown skin, and hence the colour of the previous wine, and it stands up to the conditions. So it likes to be abused a bit, so if you want to abuse it in this situation, you put it in a barrel, or partly in a barrel, and it puts some fibre into the texture of the wine. So this is not a dummies wine, this is a real serious drink.
That's the thing, the texture on that is what appeals, and it's got some of that pear character that you associate with this particular variety. I mean, that's much more typical for what we would think of as Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio, made by Dave Bicknell, who's one of our star winemakers in Australia. Made a lot of brilliant stuff.
Very spicy oak, lots of bright flavours, no fruitiness, it's just purely serious spicy oak, lots of length, lots of texture, and very bright in the mouth. So it's
quite acidic.
Yeah, it's quite acidic, but that's the style, and that's, I guess, upper Yarra Valley you'd expect to find that.
But the wood contact probably takes a little bit of that punch of the acidity away, doesn't it?
The reason it's quite high in acidity, it's only 11.5 alcohol.
Shouldn't that mean it's sweet?
So low alcohol, high acidity is
Not as sweet as you can.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry.
Okay.
That's a wonderful wine. I really like that.
Really good.
And,
that with a slice of barramundi would be just about
and
perfect.
it's very slow maturing.
Righto, and on to wine number 3. Kent, back to you.
2021 Cloudbreak, Adelaide Hills. Little tiny operation, fairly new operation, side project in a sense, except the wines are certainly far better than side project might suggest. And the first time I saw this, I really liked it. I thought it was worth bringing along to have a look at. It's another example of the grape here in Australia that's got a little bit more interest, a little bit more complexity and texture, and it's from a cracking vintage in 21.
Lots of pear in that one.
Yeah, very interesting. A few things to think about. This is the fruitiest of the three because it's young. It's 21 vintage, so the pear character, as Chris was talking about, is just the fruit oozing out. It's made by a minimalist producer, obviously the youngest set. You have to work out what Cloudbreak is with the minimalist label. Pinot Gris is Grigio is on the back label, not the front label, so you have to catch and kill your own.
That's one way of putting it.